Do 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 do. Hello my lovely people, and welcome to the 2019 July episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name's Leslie and this is a knitting, crochet, general yarn podcast from the south coast of England. Thank you so much for watching. I know I've got a number of new subscribers, so thank you very much for joining, and of course a huge thank you to everyone who keeps on coming back. Bless you. Because there are a number of new subscribers, just a little bit about myself. I'm in my 50s. I've been knitting and crocheting since I was 4 or 5 years old. I've done a bit of designing in the past, had a few patterns published in magazines, but mostly I just crochet and knit either my own patterns or other people's designs, usually with a fair bit of modification. I also apparently have noisy motorbikes outside and messages on my phone, so a bit of extraneous noise, but there we go. In my day job I'm a funeral celebrant, so that's why you'll sometimes hear me talking about ceremonies, visits. I'll be sitting in the car outside crematoria because I record the podcast throughout the month and then put it all together and upload it on the last weekend of the month. So you'll see me in different places, different clothes, sometimes with makeup, sometimes without, all sorts of things. It's called the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, despite the fact that I clearly have some behind me, some more over there, and some off screen, because I rarely have enough of the same yarn to make an entire garment. So I'll put in a stripe or a trim or something to complete it with a different yarn. So that's the reason for the name. Now, as I say, I know we've got quite a few new subscribers, so thank you. Please do feel free to comment in the below, whatever that means. I love seeing your comments. This is very much a one-way street whilst I'm putting it out there, but once it's out there, it's very much two ways. So please do comment, let me know what you're up to, any observations, delighted to hear them. I know that I've lost a few subscribers, and that's, I think, largely due to my comments on the Ravelry policy, which I spoke about last month. That's fine. The reason why I put comments out there like that, and this is by no means a political podcast, I very much keep this to the knitting and crochet, but when there's something important, I feel the need to kind of put my views out there so that you know where I stand and you can decide whether you wish to continue watching me. If you have completely different views, I am more than happy for you to still be here. I am delighted if you still want to be here. I have no desire to live in an echo chamber. So please don't feel that if you disagree with me, I'm asking you to leave. That's absolutely not the case. I'm just putting my views out there so that if you do feel that I'm no longer someone you want to watch, you're aware and you can go and find people that you'd rather watch. And that's, I wish you happy crafting and we're all good, I hope. So that's kind of why I did what I did last month. And I know some people have chosen to go. I wish them well, and thank you to those who stayed. I think that's the bit about me. Oh, on social media generally, I'm knitting or death. That takes us back to the celebrant funerals thing. I'm not very active on Twitter. I do have an account, but I can't remember the last time I even had a look, let alone posted anything. Quite often on Instagram. Recently it seems upsetting people on Instagram, but that happens, that's an Instagram thing. Generally I try to spread the love, but sometimes it doesn't work. So that's just life, and that's how we learn and we grow. So yeah, mostly knitting, crochet. I took some time off at the beginning of July. This is going to sound weird because I'm actually recording this intro halfway through the month. So I took some time off and did some sewing projects during that time. So I have included a little bit of footage of those. Just hopefully it's something of interest. It's not very long, so if you go into this and the first bit appears to be all about sewing, you're going to be thinking, not really yarn craft, is it, Les? And you'd be right. But, you know, we try to expand the things that we do. There is a Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast group on Ravelry. And the main thing on there is the knit along, which I am hosting with the wonderful Barbara from the Flame and Fibre podcast. I hope you're all watching her as well, because she's lovely. She has 2 gorgeous dogs, Pearl the rascal dog, the German Shepherd, and Maze the Newfoundland Poodle cross puppy. They are both adorable. I love cats too, but I'm also a dog person. I have a small diva called Heidi, who you'll sometimes see. But yeah, Barbara and I are hosting the Craft From Your Stash along, the Stash Cal 2019, all of this year. It was all her idea. She deserves all credit for it. I'm just helping to host it as well. And the rules are very simple. Basically, the stash had to be in your collection at the end of 2018. The project had to be started on or after 1st of January 2019. It's running all year. If you need to buy a little extra yarn to finish something off, absolutely fine. Just make sure it's no more than 50% of the total yarn in the project. We both have 2 threads on our group. So like I say, she's on the Flame and Fibre podcast, and there's one on the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. And there is a finished object thread where you can post your FOs, and also a chatter thread where you can also post your FOs, but you can also talk about inspiration, you can talk about each other's pieces, you can kind of say what lovely yarns folks have used, what lovely colours, ask where they got details from, all of that stuff. And we both draw from both threads, and you're warmly invited to double dip. So become a member of both groups and double dip away and increase your chances. Sometimes I have trouble speaking. You can increase your chances of winning. I think that's probably it. I know Barbara's been talking about that in her podcast as well. And she's also been doing some cross stitch recently. So if that's something you're interested in, yet another reason, not that you need one, to head on over there and look at the lovely projects she's been making. I think that's all the admin stuff. So a little bit of making and a little bit of acquisition. Now, I have been on a yarn diet since November 2017, with the exception of Unravel. I went to the Unravel yarn show. I allowed myself that bit of purchasing. But people are very kind and they give me stuff. So I've got a little bit of stash acquisition to show you in a minute. But firstly, a very small make. Now, people who've been watching previously will know that I was making these makeup remover pads. Haven't actually used them yet because I had a load of the disposable cotton ones, so I'm using those first. But with scraps of leftover cotton, I crocheted these pads. So I've got quite a few of these, and you can see they're just circles made out of cotton, done in crochet. Super simple. They could be squares and knitted, it really wouldn't matter. The idea is just to have something cotton to stick some micellar water on and scrape the face paint when I go drumming. That's another thing, I'm in a drumming group. Look at the last podcast if you want to understand that. There's some drumming right at the beginning. But yeah, just sort of makeup removers. And the thought occurred to me, when I come to wash them, are they going to get lost in the washing machine? I'm in the UK, I have a front-loading washing machine, that's the norm in the UK, and I have visions of these kind of stuck to the drum and getting caught in the mechanism and all that sort of thing, and me never finding them again. So I made a little bag, so a very simple little crochet mesh bag, again out of cotton, to put them in. And the idea is once I've used them, I'll just stick them in here. When I wash the bath towels, stick this in the washing machine as well, so that they all stay together. So very simple little mesh bag, chain drawstring, and hopefully that will keep them all together. So that's a very small little project. I do quite a few of these little householdy things. Whenever I see a need, my first thought is, can I make something to fill that need? So that's what I did here. Now, I mentioned a bit of acquisition because the lovely Kellyanne, who is the presenter of the Yarn Tales by the Sea podcast and also one of our drum leaders, turned up at drum practice last week and said, can you use this yarn? Well, I didn't have to look at it before I said yes, because yes, of course. And it's a lovely yarn. It's Sylvan by Serda. I don't know if you can see that. And these are actually the same colourway. They're just from different parts of the ball. It's a thick and thin, chunky yarn. It says on the label, for inspiring winter knits. Would make a great chunky hat, I have to say. It's 90% acrylic, 10% wool, 83 metres per 50 grams. So we've got some bits and pieces here. So thank you, Kellyanne. I will find a good use for these. Thank you very much. Excuse me. And how lovely. Barbara, in her last podcast, was sort of laughing about how I've been on a yarn diet for a long time, but I always end up with more yarn than I started. Yes, it's true. Do you see me complaining? No, I didn't think so. So those are the makes so far. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Again, please do comment if there's anything that catches your eye, anything that I've forgotten to link that you'd like more information on. It's very much a conversation. I love the interaction that comes with people who very kindly take the time to watch and then add their thoughts. So thank you for that. On with the show. I hope you enjoy. Hello, my lovely people. Now, you don't often see me standing up. I'm not often standing up. But this is day one of my Maycation, and day one is clearly turning into a sewing day. I'm going to put a picture here of a jacket as it was about 4 hours ago, and I wanted to turn it into a tailcoat. I'm going to put a link in the notes to a website which shows pictures of how to do it. This is obviously for drumming, why else would it be? But excuse me getting dressed in front of you, but it's to demonstrate the work that I've done. And so my jacket is no longer suitable for work and is now a tailcoat. Come the autumn, when we drum for our bonfires, we tend to wear more this type of gear with red underneath. I mean, I wouldn't wear it over a blue check shirt ordinarily, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It took about 3 hours probably. As with all of my sewing, don't look too closely. Some of the edging is not great, but it will do the job really well. And because it's a jacket that I already had, I know it fits, so that's all good. I was looking for some buttons in my button stash. I have a button stash like I have a yarn stash, but nothing the right size, so I'll keep an eye out for that. This will, over time, get enhanced. It'll have lights attached to it and braids and goodness knows what else, but as a basic shape, I'm very happy. So all I did, cut the shape off from the fronts of the jackets. I'll take it off to demonstrate. Cut the front piece, sew it onto the back, and then I just edged it all with ribbon. I cut everything with pinking shears, the wonky edge, so that it prevents fraying. And this fabric doesn't fray anyway, it's an acrylic, so it's a sort of polyester. Let's have a look at the label. Yep, 100% polyester, so it's not a fabric that frays. So that's my first bit of sewing. I've been meaning to do this for a long time, and it's now done. So all good. I just need to give it a wash to get the tailor's chalk off it, and we're done. On to the next project. Day one, project 2 is some visible mending. I've got a couple of pairs of jeans that are getting a bit worn. I'm sorry, please be assured this is the only circumstance under which you'll see this bit of my jeans. But I've got a couple of pairs here that are fairly worn. I've got an old pair, which is worn, stained, used to use it for gardening. So armed with my trusty pinking shears, I shall cut out a piece of this, use it to patch the jeans in a technique, I'm going to say it's inspired by Japanese sashiko mending, because I'm not using the correct thread. I have a largely inherited sewing kit, and it includes, well, it's actually called button thread. See if we can get that to focus. Extra strong. Goodness only knows where this came from. It may have been from my mother's sewing box, it may have been from my grandmother's, it may have been from himself's mother's. I've inherited a few bits and pieces over the years, and it is quite a thick thread. It's still cotton, I think. Yep, still cotton, according to the other side. But it is a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger, so I'm going to use that. And I'll show you some progress as I go along. Right, so there's my patch pinned on. This is on the wrong side of the jeans. I know some people put the patches on the right side, but I'm happy for the stitching to be visible. I don't necessarily want the patch to show out, because as you can see, it's quite a different colour. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to sew around the edge on this side, just because it's easier to see and I'm less likely to prick myself with pins. And then I'll move over to the right side and carry on stitching from there. You can see that I've done the stitches around the outside and then I've flipped back the other way. I've drawn some lines on just using a regular HB pencil, because although this is a little bit wonky, I want to have straight lines going through the middle. So I'm going to carry on with that whilst I watch Kellyanne talk all about her fabulous shawl, which just looks stunning. And here it is finished. Not sure what else to say, apart from I've got another piece to do and another pair of jeans as well, so I will keep on. The yarn has worked pretty well, I think. It is fairly sturdy, so I'm hoping it will last. Obviously, it's not going to make these jeans last forever. It's not like they're new, but it will make them last longer, so that can only be to the good. I will put links to videos on proper sashiko embroidery, sewing and mending. So here we go, my repaired jeans. It's something I've enjoyed doing. Normally you spend half your life trying to hide your stitches, so to have them showing is quite refreshing. As I say, this is very much inspired by sashiko, but I'm not claiming anything of that particular art, because it is an art. It has cultural and I believe spiritual significance, and practices of it do it for years, and all of those things that make people experts. But this is just something using the visible stitching technique inspired by that. Hello lovely people. Now, I teased you in the last episode by saying I'm getting a new piece of equipment, or I'd got a new piece of equipment. I'm about to show it to you. Yes, well, it's the wrong way around on the table first of all, but I have acquired a knitting machine. I blame Skane Deer, because seeing how she's been using hers has been giving me ideas. I am not intending to do this instead of hand knitting. It will be a supplement. And I know that some people feel that it's not sort of proper knitting, and it's not the same as hand knitting. That's no mystery there. But then again, nor is crochet, nor is weaving, and I enjoy all of those crafts. So I'm just going to have a go. I'm not going to record me learning how to use this thing and setting it up, because I can outswear Dundonit, no contest, and you don't need to hear that from me. So I will set this up and give you a bit of progress update when there's something to show. Right, it's about 2.5 hours after I first started. I'm on about my 4th piece of knitted fabric, which is this, which, you know, is okay. I'm happy with that. I am very grateful to YouTube, as ever. I think I realised where I went wrong. I had this vicious looking implement is the cast on comb, and I had it hooked rather than over the stitches. I had it hooked on this bar, so as the knitting was coming down it was sort of folding up in on itself. So I've stopped that, obviously, because that was the wrong thing to do, and I'm just going to try attempt number 5. I don't know how many attempts I'm going to have today. There is a danger of overdoing it, I think. I need to give myself a little break from it, and I've got plenty of other knitting to crochet and all sorts of stuff to do. But this is where we're at so far. I'll show you the 5th attempt if it's any good. It's all good fun. So there we go. Actually, there was a false attempt after the one I've just shown you. I'm now beginning to get a bit of backache, so it is time for it to stop for today and go back to it tomorrow. Oh, what fun! Well, my lovelies, I've had another go this morning, and in the course of about an hour I've done the knitting part, or the machine knitting part, of this cat blanket. Was working out what to do with these pieces that I'm trying out, so I thought I'd make something big enough to be useful to the cat's home. I had a few problems, as you can see, particularly on one side. Oh, sorry about the angle grinding outside. My neighbour's having a new driveway laid. So I will hand finish this with crochet and sort of tuck all these edges in, cut off any threads that I need and tuck them all in. But yeah, about an hour, 110 stitches, 215 rows. Wouldn't have hand knitted that in that time, but that's the point, I guess. Hello, lovely people. Now I'm a bit behind, I'm very behind on watching other people's podcasts. I know Granny D is retelling a story at the moment. I think it may be a Mark Twain. So in that vein, I'm going to share with you the beginning of a Dickens classic, slightly adapted, The Tale of Two Beanies. It was the best of hats. It was the worst of hats. It was the age of the correct gauge. It was the age of looseness. It was the epoch of belief that it would fit. It was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light grey. It was the season of dark red and green. It was the spring of hope that it would be finished on time. It was the winter of despair that it was no good once finished. We had all the stash before us. We had nothing the right colour before us. We were all going direct to the yarn shop. We were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received for good or evil in the superlative degree of comparison only. Yes, that is the voice I use for funerals. Slightly worrying, isn't it? So let me talk to you the tale of two beanies, and let us start by going back, excuse me, moving all over and drop my heads on the floor. For those who haven't been watching for very long, welcome. Last year I inherited a couple of boxes of yarn from a friend who sadly died, and I wanted to make something out of that yarn for some particular people. There are 3 mutual friends who we're all in the funeral business. That's how we know each other, and these 3 women conducted the friend's funeral amazingly, wonderfully well. I have been putting together little things for their birthdays. So back in, I think it was in March, I made a scarf. A month or so later I made a blanket. I finished off my friend's blanket. She'd started to make one and I finished it off. And the 3rd friend has a dog, so I thought a hat for dog walking would be a good thing. So I started to make a lovely pattern, And I chose the yarn, and the yarn is, sorry, everything's over to this side, Whistlebear Yeavering Bell. These are all strange words. I'm going to have to retype these on the closed caption subtitles, I think. But so yes, so Yeavering Bell by Whistlebear. It's a 4-ply fingering weight yarn. Very soft and fluffy. It's 80% mohair, 20% Wensleydale, which I always thought was cheese, but there we go. Now the main colour for the hat, which I'll show you in a moment, is this colour here, which is called Water Nymph. And I know this for sure because there was a label tucked into this. The other yarn, I'm pretty sure is the same yarn, and I think the colour is the Hearth of Gefrin colourway, but I could be completely wrong on that. I've been going on sort of various websites and looking at pictures, and the colours can be out of sync, so I think it's Hearth of Gefrin, but I'm not sure. But as you can see, there are bits of red in this Water Nymph colourway. So I thought I would make the, what's it called? Colour Dipped Hat by Pearl Soho. This is a fisherman's rib hat, which means you knit into the stitch below. So it's a free pattern on Ravelry, and every other row you knit one below and purl, and on the alternate rows you purl one below and knit. So it means you end up with this two-sided colour, similar to brioche in a lot of ways. Also in the way that you end up doing every row twice. So yes, you can see kind of how that works. Now as I was making it, I thought this is coming out a bit big. I don't swatch for hats, and today is proving that I possibly should. So I thought it's coming out a bit big, so I started to decrease a little around the turn up of the brim. So I thought that would be okay. I then carried on, still thinking it was a bit big, but thinking, well, maybe it will shrink in a bit when I block it, because that always happens, doesn't it? So anyway, I finished this hat, and as you can see, it's very big. Now, I could wear it. I have a slightly larger than average head. The person it's going to, she's one of these wiry, athletic, healthy people. And she's possibly watching this, so hi! You are! Yeah, so she strikes me as someone who doesn't have a particularly large head. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but I just thought this is going to be far too big. I need to get this in the post tomorrow because it's her birthday, and I've done these makes for these friends as birthday presents for them. And so it occurred to me that I had a problem. This was very late Friday evening. So I went into a slight panic mode, and I thought, well, I can't send her that hat. It's ridiculous. It's just far too big and floppy, and no. So I looked back in the inherited stash and found some Debbie Bliss Mia, which is a lovely double knitting weight yarn. It's 50% wool, 50% cotton. I don't know this colourway name, but I'm going to call it light grey. And I thought I need to find a crochet pattern, which I did. And I found a very nice crochet pattern, and I'm going to put a picture here. And this is the Diamond Ridges pattern by Christy Ashmore. It's based on Jared Fledd's Cool House, the knitted hat, which you can see by the diamond pattern. I decided to slightly adapt things. And by slightly adapt things, I mean make the pattern slightly different, in as much as the way that it has front post stitches in it, and the way that they cross over. Again, it's a free pattern on Ravelry, you can look it out. I'll put the link in the bar below. The way that you cross the front post stitches creates an overlap if you do it as per the pattern. I have chosen to have what I'm liking to call, is that a sentence? A happy alteration, because I didn't do that. And only when I got to about the last row I thought, this isn't looking like other people's. Now, I really like this. I really like the way it works. I like this kind of honeycomb effect. So, although it's not as intended, I do like it. I hope Belinda does too. I really hope so. Sorry. But I finished this yesterday and it's a lovely, warm, cosy dog walking hat. Got a slight slouch to it, as you can see on Ethel here, but it would be possible to fold over the brim if it's a little too long, if she prefers to wear it without the slouch. So either way, it will work. So again, this is the Diamond Ridges pattern by Christy Ashmore, worked slightly differently. And I like it. I like it. The yarn is really nice. It's a lovely squishy texture to it. So I'm going to get this off in the post and I really hope that she likes it. And happy birthday, Belinda. And I'm sorry I'm such a numpty. But you knew that already. So there we go. The tale of two beanies. I now have a hat I wasn't expecting to have. And this very nice piece. I am genuinely pleased with this. I love the way it shapes at the top. I did alter it slightly again. I still didn't do a swatch because, you know, I was running out of time by this point. So I did alter it slightly. There are meant to be 20 pattern repeats and I made it 19 because it was getting a little bit baggy. Possibly because of the way I was working this pattern. It would have pulled in a little tighter had I stuck with the original design. But it fits Ethel nicely. This is Ethel. And that is average woman size head. Bert, who you saw wearing the other hat earlier, is a woman's large, a man's average. So hopefully this will fit her well and that she likes it. And that it keeps her warm when she's walking her lovely dog. Oh, it's been a fun few days. Just to give you a bit of information on those hats, I'll put the other one on, it's a bit warm, but... So this one here, like I say, Evening Bell by Whistle Bear. I used... sirens. I used just under 180 grams of... No, 180 metres of the main colour, the Water Nymph, and about 35 metres, so 10 grams of the contrast, the red. The Mia, for this hat, I used 230 metres, and that was on a 4mm crochet hook. I've no idea what the gauge is on either because I'm a bad knitter and crocheter. I like to live dangerously. This is going in the post, this is going in the box for winter. I'm done with hats for a little while. Goodness me, it is warm. We're in the middle of a mini heat wave. It's a bit warm to wear black, but that goes with the job. So, hello, lovely people. I'm outside a crematorium. Hope you're not getting too much glare thanks to this sun. And what I'm working on is a combination of machine knitting and crochet. And I have two pieces with me. I finished one the other day. I think I showed you a yellow blanket I was making. Well, I'm going to mess the light up with this. Let's see how that goes. So I made a yellow square and I've now edged it. Just a bit of crochet. I'm going to give it a light press just to smooth it all out and to stop it flipping over quite so much. So that was the first piece. Then I decided to get ambitious because why make things simple? Sorry, I know I'm at a bit of an angle. Let's try and straighten that up. Not sure that's any better, but we'll see. So I thought I would try and make a garment because I was practicing all this stuff and I felt like I was just making things for the sake of it. And people had said to me, oh, knitting machine, that'll burn through some yarn. Well, yes, it has done, because the amount of bits that I've thrown out because they've gone horribly wrong is kind of proof of that. So what I thought I would do was make a sweater but I wasn't going to get involved in neck shaping and anything complicated. So I've done 2 strips for the front, 2 strips for the back, and then a shorter strip for the front and a between the lengths size strip for the back. And excuse me, I have done some of the world's worst grafting, which I'm not going to show you, on the shoulders. Why I didn't just keep knitting and make the front and back strip all in one, I can only assume it's because I was thinking like a hand knitter, not a machine knitter, and was thinking all single strip and sew it together. So that's what I did. So at the moment we have a sleeveless top with a very wide neck, and I'm doing a crochet border. So it's a square neck. I'm doing a crochet border, and it's only going to be a very loose casual sweater. I mean, it's the same yarn excuse me, that I used for the curtain, which I think I showed you last month. So basically I'm going to have a sweater that matches my downstairs toilet. So that's how glamorous this is. That's where we're at. Now, I was trying to add some sleeves on, and in theory you kind of hook the pieces onto the needles, and it looks like I'm ironing. This is the international code for machine knitting, and make the sleeves that way. I have hit a few problems with the machine. It's a second-hand machine, and it was kind of sold as seen, and I was told it hadn't been used for some time. And there are some bits and pieces that I've had to replace. So I'm waiting for some parts at the moment. So I'm going to try again once those parts are received, because I think they'll just make it a smoother mechanism. So I'm hoping this will work better. If I really can't get it to work, because I'd quite like to finish this and move on to the next thing, I will make some crochet sleeves. As I say, this is just a casual sling over top, an experiment rather than a specific garment. So I'm trying to make something wearable out of it, but it will just be for kind of slobbing around at home or walking the dog, because white is very practical for dog walking. I might dye it. It's cotton, so I could give it a try and do some dyeing, so that might be an option as well. But that's where we're at the moment, so that's what I'm working on in this heat wave. It is very warm. The trouble is with warmth in the UK, and we all moan about it because, you know, oh, breeze. Oh, that's nice. It's the humidity. It's not the fact that it gets hot. You know, when we go to the Mediterranean on our holidays and it's super hot, I mean, firstly, we're not trying to kind of work and wear tights and things, but the humidity is what makes it feel so uncomfortably hot here. So Mediterranean beach, bit of breeze coming through, much drier heat, much more comfortable. The chapel that I'm going into, although it's in a very old building, it has air conditioning, and for that we are truly grateful, because tomorrow I'm at the new crematorium, which doesn't have air conditioning, and it is very warm in there. It's got, I think they tried to go down the environmental route, and rather than have sort of high-powered air conditioning, they've got windows that open up like you get on greenhouses and things like that. Yeah, they don't open up enough, and if there's no breeze coming through, it's just warm air moving around, so a tad warm in there. As I said when I came out of a ceremony the other week, it's hard to be dignified when you're dripping, but the one I'm in today, aircon. I was in there yesterday, very nice comfortable temperature, so hope springs that it will be comfortable. And then I'm home and back in, when I say beachwear, I don't mean I'm swanning around in a bathing suit, but kind of shorts, vest top. It's clothes I don't normally leave the house in, but are much more comfortable. Certainly if someone knocks at the door, it's better than me working in my underwear, and no. So, sorry, there's an image you don't need as well. So yeah, that's what I'm working on in the car at the moment. So I'm going to do a few more rows of this crochet neck to bring it in. It hasn't come through as long as I was expecting. So once I've decided what I'm doing with the sleeves, I will also do a long crochet hem, effectively, still in the same stitch. So these are just treble crochet English terms, double crochet US terms, and yeah, I'll just do that until I get to the length I require or the cone of yarn runs out. I do have quite a bit of this stuff. These are these cones that I bought when a yarn shop closed last 2 years ago now. No, the yarn shop didn't close, the yarn company did, and they bought bankrupt stock. So that's kind of where we're at, and I'm going to have to sit outside of my car because I'm looking rather undignified, I feel. Hello lovely people. In the last bit of footage I showed you when I was in the car, I was working on this, which is the knitted pieces that I've seamed together, and then I'm doing a bit of work on the neck. As you can see, this wasn't really planned or designed, it was just kind of guessed at. So I'm going to do another few rounds here just to pull this all in a bit and then see where we go from there. So that's that. I didn't buy any yarn this month, but I did buy some fibre, as you probably spotted at the beginning. I went with my mate Mandy, right Mandy, to a maker's fair. Now this is all kinds of craft. This is, there were some yarns there, but also jewellery makers, woodworkers, potters, people who work in glass. The main exhibitor is an ironmonger, so lots of garden statuary and that sort of thing. So lots of lovely stuff, including some fibre by the wonderful Jo of, hopefully that will focus, please focus, lime green jelly. Can you get that to focus in? That's better. Now Jo used to live near where I live, and she started the knitting group that I go to, but she now lives elsewhere in the country. She is an amazing spinner, dyer, weaver. She's doing patchwork at the moment. She is an incredibly creative person, and although she lives in a different part of the country, she comes back for this particular event. And last year I bought some of, no, 2 years ago I bought some of her yarn, and last year, this year I bought some fibre. Now the whole, my mate Mandy, the room that Jo was exhibiting in was incredibly hot, and the venue is a nursery, and by that I mean a plant nursery rather than a children's nursery. So Mandy went to look at the plants while I was chatting with Jo. We then stopped for a cooling glass of lemonade, and it was very busy, so we asked these other two ladies if we could share a table. Mandy said what you bought, so I showed her these. She did the Princess Leia thing. And the lady who was sharing a table said, "Oh, Star Wars. Looks more like Phantom Menace." And I'd like to apologise to Mandy for laughing quite as heartily as I did. But it was funny. I'm sorry. She did ask me afterwards, is that what my life has come to, being insulted by strangers? And I couldn't help but think, yeah, but only because she was quicker than I was. So we have some very pretty fibre. I've got 3 braids. This first one is merino. It's 101 grams, and you can see lots of lovely yellows. The colours are showing up pretty well. Lovely deep kind of magenta-y, pinky mauve colour there. Oranges, so lovely and bright. So we'll be looking forward to spinning that at some point. I picked up a braid of a lovely, red's my colour, and I picked up a braid of reds, and I said to Jo, now come on, I'm a newbie spinner, what would be the best things to choose or the best things to avoid? She said, don't do that one, and that was the one I'd picked up. So I put that back and got this lovely one instead. So reds again into kind of purples, bit of black in there. And this fibre is BFL. There's 99 grams of BFL here. And finally, this beautiful thing is, and it's not something I'd heard of before, Humbug BFL. Now I've done a bit of research, and Humbug is different shades of BFL together, and you can see, hopefully, that it's putting those lovely dark streaks in. So you get a real kind of contrast in amongst all these fabulous colours. Jo has an Etsy shop, and I'll put the details in the instructions, in the notes below. But yeah, she is the dyer behind Lime Green Jelly, and these bits of gorgeousness will be spun at some point. I feel that I haven't broken my shopping embargo because they're not fibre, they're not yarn yet. They will be one day. So that's them. The thing that I've been working on fairly monogamously this month is the test knit that I'm doing for Nidhi Kansal, who is Nidhi Knits, and it's her Adia, and again I hope I'm pronouncing that right, sweater. It's a thing of gorgeousness. Now I have her permission to talk about it on the podcast. I know sometimes with test knits the designers want to keep them under wraps until everything is being released, so I double checked with her and she said I was fine to talk about it on the podcast. I'll put a picture here first of all of the finished item, her original picture, and this so far is my version. Now it's a fingering weight sweater and I'm making the 62-inch actual size, chest size, so there's a lot of knitting involved. Normally when I make sweaters they tend to be double knitting weight at least, but this is just gorgeous. So I'll run through it very briefly. It's a top-down raglan, as you can see, short rows on the back neck to give it a bit of give it the right sort of shape at the back, and you can also see there's a couple of sort of tram lines going down, and these echo the tram lines which are either side of the pattern at the front. And let me just see if I can put something in there to show up, because it's a lace and cable pattern. None of this has been blocked yet, but you can see that there's a lovely pattern in there. On the sleeve, and I've done one of the sleeves so far, I tend to do sleeves first after I've done the yoke. Traditionally this was always because I didn't know how much yarn I would have. And so I would do the sleeves and then make a decision on the body to add a block of another colour, perhaps adjust the length of the garment depending on how much yarn I had. Never had to make a garment this short, thankfully, but yeah, by doing the sleeves first I knew what I had left was for the entire body. So I've done one of the sleeves. Having said that, I think I'm going to have enough. I have got some black 4-ply fingering weight yarn if I need to for the hem, but I think I'm going to have enough. So we've got a bit of a band of that same lace and cable pattern at the sleeve, and then it goes down to an I-cord bind off and a button loop, so that'll be done up by button. So it's quite a close fitting sleeve, which is exactly as I like them, because I don't like flappy bits. Yeah, so that's where we are. Like I say, none of it's blocked at the moment, so it's not showing its full glory. I have made mistake after mistake on this, to be honest, and had to rip it back. And it's nothing to do with the pattern. It is entirely to do with me. I think my basic problem was I got stitch gauge but not row gauge. So row gauge was I think 10 rows per inch, something like that. I had fewer rows per inch. So I had to do some reworking for the yoke, and I think that's possibly why it's looking a little bit puckered in places, because I had to do more regular increases, but I'm fairly confident that that will all block nicely. At no point did I think to myself, sleeve length, Les, how's that going to work out? So I had done about 99, possibly even 100 rows of sleeve, and I suddenly thought, that's not going to work, is it? That's going to be far too long. No! So I had to work it out and rip it back. And it's entirely my own fault. I only have myself to blame. On the plus side, because of the way the gauge was working, I had fewer rows to work second time round. So had my gauge been the other way around, I could have just extended decreases I had left and made the sleeves longer. But I was going at it completely the wrong way. I would have had sleeves kind of here. So I would have had flappy bits and then a button at the end. That would not be good. So I had to rip it back basically to the pattern and then just work it down again. Like I say, nothing wrong with the pattern and the way it's written. Entirely me, just not thinking. Story of my life. So yes, it's been a bit of a month of things going wrong really, what with the tale of the two hats and me having to rip this back. I'd like to think I've learned from these experiences and won't make the same mistakes again, but you and I both know that that's probably not the case. Had I just been knitting this for myself, not as a test knit, I probably would have fudged it more and perhaps only ripped back half of the sleeve and then adjusted, so it would have had a slightly kind of leg of mutton shape to it, but you can block out anything, can't you? But because it is a test knit, I wanted to do it properly, so ripped it back. Didn't take that long to make the sleeve. It's all fine. So second sleeve to go, then the body. I've got until the end of August, or very close to the end of August, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. It's fairly quiet. This is going to be famous last words. It's relatively quiet work-wise at the moment. This is good. This means not many people are dying. And it also means I have more time at home to knit. It means I'm not earning any money if I'm not working, but you know, we have contingencies. When you're self-employed, you have to, don't you? So that's kind of where we're at. So I'm hopeful that I'll get the second sleeve done fairly quickly and then just work down for the body. I'm really enjoying it. The yarn is Stranded Dye Works MCN in the House Red colourway. Now there's possibly a bit more variegation in here than is normal. Amy very kindly gave me some ends of batches and things like that, and she said you'll have to alternate skeins because they weren't as consistent as a batch of her yarn would be, and that's fine. I mean, it's all absolutely perfect stuff. It's just when you're working one against another, if you were getting a sweater quantity from her from one update, it would be more consistent. And she has very high standards, so these are balls and skeins that didn't go in the shop because she felt they weren't quite where they should be on the colour range. I love them. I absolutely love them, and the feel of it is just beautiful. The initial pattern required a woollier yarn, so a lot of people are using Holst and more sort of rustic yarns. I just love this, so this is what I've chosen. So that's that. So with a bit of luck, next month, well, you'll certainly see the second sleeve, you'll see quite a bit of the body, you may even see it finished. That would be a good thing. You'll certainly see as much done as I need for the test to meet Niddy's criteria, so that is not a problem. But just really happy with how it's coming out. So I've been working fairly monogamously on this, along with a bit of machine knitting, as you've seen. Hello. That's probably going to continue because I'd like to get as much done as I can before the deadline. Like I say, ideally I'd finish it. Oh, one thing I forgot to show you, I cord bind off on the sleeves. Hopefully you can see that. So yeah. Yeah, so I'd like to get this finished or as close to it as I can by the end of August. So in terms of knitting, chances are this is all you're going to see next month, unless I get a real crack on and start working on other things as well. But this is where we're at. So that's it, the end of July. Apologies for any kind of extraneous noise. We're in the middle of very warm weather, had our hottest ever day yesterday, and I think it was possibly nationally the hottest ever day. And I spent most of the afternoon in the garden going in the shade. Today 10 degrees cooler but still quite warm, and so we've got windows open, so hence noise. Hopefully it's not too distracting for you. I think that's it for July. So again, as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for spending your time with me. I love having you here. Please do comment, tell me what you're up to. I love the interaction. So in all the comments below, please do just, if you'd like to, no obligation, but if you'd like to say hi, any thoughts you've made, if you've made some of the similar patterns, just, you know, be great to hear from you. And have a great month. August, what does that have in store? Visit from family. Got my niece and her partner and his little girls coming to stay for a weekend, so that should be good fun. Quite a bit of drumming, a few carnivals and that sort of thing. Yeah, so just more of the same. I hope that things are going well with you. What have I done to my hair? What have I done to my hair? I hope that things are going well with you and that you have time to knit, that you take joy in the things that you do, and that you have a good month. And I hope to see you at the end of August. Thanks again. Take care. Bye bye.